Hi everyone, this is just a little video to discuss some of the things that I've been seeing going on LinkedIn, Reddit, and various messages that have come my way over the last few months really regarding structured programming, specifically the use of UDTs and passing by reference. So this is, as I teach in the asset-oriented programming course, this is taking a UDT, which is a user-defined data type, and then creating an instance of that UDT and then passing it to a function block via an in-out interface. Now, just a quick rundown of why you might do that. The way that I do things is I develop all of my data around an asset, such as a valve or a pump or a level controller or something like that. I have a UDT with all of the asset data that it produces. That's things like indication for SCADA, alarming, automation control commands. So like the auto enable, the signal coming from IO and things like that. And it all gets packaged into a single data block that relies upon that UDT to give the blueprint for the data for that asset. And then I pass all of that data through a in-out interface to a manager that looks after that particular asset. So I have a dedicated function block that looks after that asset. And I think it's a great way of managing things. I think it's a great way of ensuring that you have not only data structure through the UDT, but you have a structured approach for every type of equipment that you use. And I've been an advocate for it for a long time. And I'm starting to see now not more people adopt what I do, because it's not about like what I do, but more people talk about UDTs. And one of the things that keeps coming up is the inability to cross-reference when you're using UDTs. And it's a bit mixed up with what people are sort of saying. I've seen a lot of discussion about they're not a good thing to use. UDTs remove the flexibility of being able to pick up a program, cross-reference something and find it. And whilst there is a bit of truth in that, it's a little bit misleading when you say it just like that. So I thought I'd just discuss it briefly. So basically, it is true that you cannot cross-reference UDTs that are passed via in-out. You in fact can't cross-reference anything that comes from anywhere once it passes through an interface, because it becomes part of the instance data, and you would have to cross-reference the instance data in order to find what you're looking for. But the unique thing about in-out references is they don't appear in the instance data because they're passed by reference. They're not copied into the instance data block for a function block. So you do lose the ability to cross-reference them. And I think that is a pitfall for a lot of people, because people who have come from non-structured environments where everything is just in global data blocks and is referenced everywhere through the project, no matter if you're in a function or a function block or you're just writing in OB1, for example. I think moving away from that to needing to understand the architecture of the project is quite a big step. And I can see how people fall into this thing of, I don't like it because I can't cross-reference. But there are many more benefits for sort of doing that. And it all comes down to how you approach the development from the beginning. So I wanted to just say, like, the way I do things is I don't create a structure for anything until I know that I need to use it 3 times. And that's a little bit misleading. I do create structures and things like that, but I don't version stuff into a library. I don't create a reusable object for things until I have a need to do that 3 times. So if I had a new valve that I'd never used before, I might create a bespoke data block for it and have my open indication and the things that valve does, and then create a function block that manages that data. But I wouldn't go through the hassle of creating a dedicated UDT, updating my library for it, because I might never use that again. But if on the next project, I find that I am using it, I'd be like, right, now's the time to start thinking about, do I need to create a UDT for this? And if I did, what is it that I would need to have to create longevity in this asset? Like, is there anything I can improve? Do I need to give myself more flexibility around things like simulation, alarm overrides? And if so, how would the data look for that? And by the third time, I would be writing a dedicated UDT that interfaced with a dedicated control manager, all with a view to going into my common controls library, so that the next projects and any other engineers that end up using my library would be able to just pick this object up and drop it in. Because if you're using libraries, all of the dependencies of the objects that you drop in are brought across with you. So you don't end up in a situation where you're dropping an object in, but you don't have something that the object relies on. And I think just that in its own outweighs the cross-referencing issue. There are ways around the cross-referencing thing. So if you use project-wide searching in TIA Portal, CodeSys also suffers from this, that you can't cross-reference, although the tooling is a little bit better, I feel, for cross-referencing in CodeSys. But project-wide searching with wildcards, where you use stars like or asterisks, so asterisk dot asterisk, and then what you're searching for will hit all of the elements inside logic where it's used, and that's really powerful to find what you're looking for. But realistically, the more time you spend with these libraries and the more time that you spend with that code, the more it should become apparent where you're finding the information. So for me, if you're looking for an open indication for a valve or a closed indication for a valve, you should be able to find it in the dedicated management block. It shouldn't appear anywhere else. If it does appear anywhere else, then you'll find that you can either cross-reference it from the global data because it's being used somewhere where it's accessed globally, which is still fine, or you'll find the actual data block being passed into a bigger object. So there's times where I might have a tank management system that has a tank and 2 pumps and 2 valves, a level controller, and they're all wrapped up as a big tank management system, which is just one function block. And that function block will have the asset data for the level, the pumps, and the valves just on the interfaces InOuts. In that case, I would need to search for the valve's name, and I can see that there's a manager managing that valve, and there's also an instance of the valve data being passed to this dedicated function block for the tank system. And then in there, once I open that, I can then search for the open indication to find out where it's being used. And yes, it is an extra step, sometimes an extra 2 steps to find what you're looking for, but I think the structure around it far outweighs the issue of not being able to cross-reference. I think the biggest problem with this approach is going through somebody else's architecture. I think that's where people struggle the most, when you're doing a cross-reference on a valve because you have an issue with that valve right now, and you're not hitting anything. You do a cross-reference on where is the closed signal used in my project, and it returns no results. And it's having that mindset to go, right, okay, well, we might be dealing with what is essentially a pointer, and pointers can't be cross-referenced, but we might be dealing with a pointer here that pokes the information into a function block somewhere else. So I should search for or cross-reference the topmost object, which is the data block itself, see where it's used, and then you have to drill down through there. And yes, it's extra steps, and it is, but I think the payoff of having library management and version control and reusability with dependency control is far, far more beneficial than being able to skip out a few steps on finding what you're looking for.